My name is Nathan Fielder, and I graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with really good grades. Now, I'm using my knowledge to help struggling small business owners make it in this competitive world. This is Nathan for you.
Oh, hi. I've been hired by WorldCom, one of the world's leading telecommunications companies, to keep their strong foothold in the industry. But before I can do that, I need to figure out what exactly it is that they do. So I sat down with industry analyst Robin Smith to find that out. Thank you for joining me today. First off, what exactly does WorldCom do?
So WorldCom began as a long-distance call connector. Throughout the 90s, they acquired a lot of companies to increase their market share and enter new business lines like international calls, local calls, and wireless services like data and internet.
That sounds like a good industry to be in.
The telecom industry did boom in the 90s, however, that growth is slowing. Currently, the telecom industry is extremely competitive. A lot of companies are also trying to break into the data and internet markets, making it hard for one company to attain a significant market share.
And where exactly do they fit in the industry?
WorldCom's strategy for growth has always been acquiring other companies to grow their market share and diversify their offerings. The fact that WorldCom offers pretty much every telecom service is a big plus for them. However, they have a lot of exposure to the declining long-distance call market due to a large amount of debt from investing in infrastructure. WorldCom is also fairly weak in the wireless communication sector, which is where most of the growth in the industry will be in the next few years.
Well, that doesn't sound too good. How have they responded?
They recently attempted to merge with Sprint to access their wireless business, but the antitrust division of the Department of Justice blocked that merger. This is a problem for WorldCom CEO Bernie Evers because acquiring more companies seems to be his only game plan. If they want to continue to stay a dominating force in the telecom industry, they're going to have to prove that they can keep their earnings up and maintain their gross profit percentage over the next few years.
What do you think they're going to do?
You'll have to ask Bernie himself.
Well, let me start by thanking you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today. I understand that WorldCom has been struggling to meet your expectations.
Well, Nate, can I call you Nate?
I prefer Nathan.
All right, Nate. So, I've turned WorldCom into one of the most successful telecommunication businesses. I feel like they should meet my expectations.
Well, would you say that attitude has anything to do with the personal loans that you've taken out? The ones backed by WorldCom stock?
That certainly has something to do with it. Things may be a little slow right now, but I have faith that my good friend and CFO of WorldCom, Scott Sullivan, will have something up his sleeve to take care of it, or at least he better.
That sounds like super illegal.
Does it? Well, I talked to Mr. Evers and...
Wait, you talked to Bernie?
I did, and I think he'd love this, especially if his so-called good friend was able to pull it off.
Wait, you really said that? You called me his good friend?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's all I needed to hear. Thanks, Nathan. I can't wait to see where this plan takes us.
Good evening. My name is Mimi Best, and welcome to Bulldog Broadcasting Company, here on this Friday evening of April 1st, 2003. As most of you viewers probably know, one of the world's largest global telecommunications companies, WorldCom, has found itself in some sticky financial situations lately. Just a few weeks ago, the investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission came to a close, enabling us outsiders to look into just how this type of fraudulent activity can get started. Tonight on BBC, we have the privilege of bringing on our very own fraud specialist, Augustina, who has spent her time analyzing this specific case of WorldCom. She will be examining the executives themselves and the outside factors which motivated this shocking behavior. Augustina, over to you.
Thank you for having me, Mimi. Now, in fraudulent cases such as these, we have what is known as the fraud triangle. which is made up of three motivating factors for the perpetrators. These are pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. Regarding Bernie Ebbers, the CEO, and Scott Sullivan, the CFO, the significant motivation was outside pressure. This emerged from the struggling telecom industry, which arose from the increased demand in data and internet services. Due to WorldCom's perceived weaknesses in wireless technologies, Ebbers placed immense pressure on other executives, such as Scott Sullivan, to improve profit margins. As we like to say about corporate culture, the tone is at the top. After speaking with a few ex-employees, it has been clear that he set strict target figures that had to be met. Regarding the other two factors, opportunity and rationalization, they would require a much deeper look into both the financials and psychology of the corporation and the individuals. In this case, the opportunity stemmed mostly from the corporation's internal structure and reporting practices. While we do not have access to such detailed information, it can be assumed that there was enough opportunity existing for WorldCom at least for the past 3 years. Rationalization is the perpetrator's way of personally justifying their illegal actions. After learning about the culture of this corporation, we can gather that Sullivan's rationalization was most likely that he was following orders from Ebbers of meeting strict figures. And there you have it, the main motivators of the WorldCom nightmare.
Thank you for that thorough analysis, Augustina. Next, I have Hunter Langford here, a financial accounting professor from the Toll School of Accounting at the University of Georgia. He's sitting with me to discuss the technical background of WorldCom's actions. Now, Dr. Langford, the SEC stated that WorldCom overstated its earnings by $9 billion between 1999 and 2002. For people without an accounting background, what happened?
Maybe a few different things were going on. First, WorldCom was reducing its reported expenses by up to 17% in the quarters between 1999 and 2000. They were doing this two ways. One was they would reduce the expense accruals they had booked earlier in recognition of incurred line costs. The reduction in accruals corresponded to a reduction in the line cost expense. The second way was by recognizing line costs as an expense to PP&E instead of expensing them on the income statement. The result was an overstatement of assets and understatement of expenses. The second way they were doing this was by overstating revenues. As this graph shows, they were using entries to revenue between 1999 and 2001 to meet aggressive earning targets. They were doing this in two ways. First of all, the company has enormous self-imposed pressure to hit unrealistic growth targets, and to do this, they made end-of-quarter adjustments to revenue in order to meet expectations and imposed systematic close-the-gap programs in their accounting departments where aggressive revenue entries were made over time. As the SEC reported graph showed, each quarter WorldCom made material revenue overstatements that allowed them to meet and maintain revenue growth.
Now, Dr. Langford, WorldCom has an audit like all other public companies. How did this go unnoticed?
Mimi, that's a good question. Let's look at the data. First of all, we have fraudulent and incorrect financials for the years 1999 through 2001. As you can see, in 2001, the fraudulent financials report that WorldCom was able to keep its line costs at a relatively straight 40% of revenue. This is surprising given that sales pressures in a declining industry, we would expect this ratio to grow over time. However, WorldCom was able to keep it relatively flat. But when compared to the restated financials that they just issued, we see that, in fact, the ratio does grow from 42 to 50% in 2001. Going further, if we look at earnings manipulation analysis, an analysis of asset quality shows that WorldCom looked more like a non-manipulator than a manipulator, but an analysis of the growth in net operating assets shows that WorldCom had net growth in net operating assets significantly above its industry peers. So the capitalization could have been hard to detect. However, the sales growth was a red flag. The sales growth number was incredibly high and in line with values found in financial statement manipulators. Additionally, overall growth rate for sales nearly doubles in years 98 and 99 versus 97. However, WorldCom was known as a star in the industry, so the growth may have been explained. An additional area of fraud that the company perpetrated was incorrectly adjusting its tax rate in the years 99 and 2000. As this shows, from 1997 to 2001, the firm's ETR goes from 50% in 97 and 98 to around 40% in 99 through 2000. Without any other explanation, this should have been a red flag.
Do you expect Arthur Andersen to be held accountable for this failure?
It's hard to tell. Andersen should have questioned the large entries made to revenue at the end of each quarter and should have questioned the reasoning behind the reversal of the line cost accruals. The SEC report clearly highlights how Andersen seemed to abandon the professional skepticism expected of an auditor in reviewing the end of quarter extraordinary entries that WorldCom was making. However, my guess is that they have bigger fish to fry now, given that Enron is also one of their clients.
Fascinating, Dr. Langford. And just one last question. How did the SEC begin to question WorldCom?
Mimi, my guess is that the SEC wondered what made WorldCom special and what made it able to report the positive income that it did when the whole industry was declining and its direct competitors were showing losses in the years that WorldCom had earnings. However, as we saw, the financials hid the fraud well, and so the mastermind behind this had some real talent.
Well, thank you for your financial expertise, Dr. Langford. And when we get back from this quick commercial break, we will be discussing Pixar's much anticipated release of Finding Nemo this May, and the surprisingly controversial message it may be portraying.